Hogstye.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hogsty. This is an interesting show. It is an interesting show because I don't think we've ever had this happen for 8 years. There's no Steve. It's Dave and I. And Dave, I don't think I ever did a show just with Jamal, just with Sean or Robbie or any of the guys. Steve actually had stuff to do, and he just flew back into, I think Houston is what's going on. He's exhausted, so he gets a pass. He missed one show in 8 years. But Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's just a shame that for the first time you had to be narrowed down to one person, had to be with me, unfortunately.
It's fine. It could be worse. I won't say who. There's one person who I think it would have been more difficult to do a show with a solo. Um, I'm not gonna say who,
envision
because I
a
like
couple.
them. I like all these guys that we do our shows with over the years. Um,
Uh,
Yeah. But all right, week one is in the books. Washington gets a big, well, not big. They won. They
they
won.
won. A win's a
It
win.
was a win's a win. They beat the Arizona Cardinals. Um, and yeah, now we're going to be moving on to the Broncos. But first, we're going to talk about this Cardinals game because there was a lot to get through. Dave, you were at your seats. Your seats was
Yep.
which I previewed for you and checked for you
Yes.
and made sure they were all
Correct.
good.
Yes.
Um, Sorry if one of them smelled a little funky. That's on me. Um,
That's okay. I just added to it. We're all good.
yeah,
We're all
yeah,
good.
yeah. So why don't you go through your experience going to the game, um, and we'll kind of talk about the game as after that.
Well, I tell you what, I was definitely nervous for the traffic wise because even when one third of the stadium's full, the
Yeah.
traffic bottlenecks is insane.
Yes.
So I left probably about maybe almost an hour and a half sooner or earlier than I would normally leave to go to a game because
Yeah.
of where I'm coming from. And so when I went there, but I had to go to Sean Taylor Road to
Yeah.
get
Yeah. I
there,
know.
and right. But see, the back way that it took me to get there, I went on to I think it was back way it took me on to Collins Boulevard or something like that. And
Okay.
I mean, the way that I went through there was just amazing. It took me off the highway around the track. By the time I hit any traffic, I was pulling into Sean Taylor Way to get up to my actual parking pass for Orange Lot E. So I was like, so I
Yeah.
saved that path. That's the path I'm taking forever and a day to avoid all the traffic. That was fantastic right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Because when I went there, and they now make you go in a particular way, which
Right.
look, it's I'm not going to complain. It's parking. But like for me personally, I live right off Central Avenue. Like
Right.
I technically, if I'm going to the south lots, I make 3 turns and I'm there. Technically, it's like turn, get on Central Avenue, straight shot, and I'm all the way there.
Right.
But getting up there, getting up to the north side is not a big deal. But that last mile or so, when I went, brutal
Right.
because they do not do a good job of funneling all those roads into Sean Taylor Way, or
Right.
they weren't at the time. So hopefully
Oh,
that was better.
when I went through there, it was relatively smooth. It wasn't that. I mean, it's. I could tell if I got there probably another half hour later, maybe an hour later, I probably would have ran into the issues you're talking about. But because I left the time that I did, I think I
Hmm.
missed a lot of what you're talking about right there. But and plus, you went to a night game anyway, so that's probably gonna be a little crazy. 'Cause you also have all the other traffic,
Oh
the
yeah, all
local
the rush hour
traffic added
traffic.
to it. So
That's
that,
true.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but other than
yeah.
that, I mean, the actual ride to get there was real easy, real smooth. It was nice.
Hmm.
Now, when I got to the stadium, um, I I'll tell you what, the fans absolutely showed up.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, the players were asking for us to be there. The coaches were pleading for us to be there, make the noise, and do everything in our power to make it like a home game for a first time, like what since RG3's rookie season.
yeah,
And I'll tell you what, we absolutely did that. You could barely hear the band playing the fight song.
Mm-hmm.
It had got to a point to where it was like even when our defense was coming off the field off of a big play or turnover, and the offense get on there. I mean, it's one of the few times you actually see our quarterbacks actually kind of like having to cover the ears a bit like that. And listen, because the cheering was kind of fading away, but it was still loud. So it was
Yeah.
impressive by the fans. The fans definitely showed up for that game.
And you mentioned RG3. Of course, all those legendary players were there. Griffin was there. He is not included in the legendary player list, by the way, by me. I
No.
was gonna say Riggins, that moment where he was on the screen and flashed the old Redskins logo, I heard got a big reaction.
Oh, the stadium erupted. Everyone
Yeah,
started going, "Let's go Redskins! Let's go
yeah.
Redskins!" Started going nuts.
Sonny
So
was there. Billy was there. Any other big names that because like those were the ones that everyone talks about. Those
Well,
four
you
guys.
had you had Champ Bailey that was there.
Oh right, Champ and Portis were
Champ
there.
Bailey, yes,
Which glad to see Portis is out. Uh,
right.
you know, so those guys were there. And I like that. I like that they brought everybody out of the woodwork for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I saw Kevin Durant was sitting there with Josh Harris during the game. I don't know if you saw that in the stadium, but they
No,
showed that on the.
I didn't see that. No,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Well, there are things you won't see going to a game and that's just the way it is.
yeah, sure, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's not. I mean, it was nice to see all that. It was great, but you
yeah,
talking about celebrities that aren't former players that I watched. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. That's great.
right,
So, but
exactly. It's all cool. It's all great.
yeah, that's all.
Um, yeah. So the thing that let's talk a little bit more about the game, though. Really, I mean, I want to ask you what you ate. I sent you guys a picture of what I made for my game day meal, where I made like a Arizona style hot dog, which, if you don't know, bacon wrapped hot dog with beans, green chili, uh, pico kind of stuff, and avocado. That's an Arizona style hot dog.
And it looked
Really
very
healthy,
good.
especially when you
Yes.
wrap it in bacon.
Everything's healthy wrapped in bacon.
Yes, bacon makes things healthier. That's what the keto diet says, right?
Absolutely. Up to a pound of it. Absolutely.
A day. Yeah, a
Yes, a
pound a
day.
day. And
Yes.
then everyone's going to wonder why all these like fitness freaks died in their 40s at some point. Uh, but let's talk about the game. Since Steve is here, I guess I'm going to have to read the numbers. So let me pull that up real quick. Of course, we'll start with. Oh, I hate how Pro Football Reference orders things. All right, Sam Howell was 19 for 31, 202 yards, one touchdown, one interception. The six sacks. We're gonna have to talk in depth about the sacks.
Right.
He had a fumble, which was that one that was recovered for a touchdown. A rating of 77.6 according to Pro Football Reference. Joshua Dobbs of Arizona, 21 for 30, 132 yards, three sacks, no picks, no interception or touchdowns. He had a quarterback rating of 78.7. Let's go to rushing yards. James Conner led the day with 62 yards, followed by Brian Robinson, who had 59 on 19 carries. Not a great day for Robinson. That's under 3 yards per.
Yep.
Uh, let's see. Sam Howell had 2 for 11. Gibson had 3 for 9 and a fumble. And or is it Chris Rodriguez or Christian? They wrote it down as Chris. I thought it was Christian Rodriguez.
He does go by profile Christian Rodriguez, but they do call
Yeah.
him Chris. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. 3 for 7 for Rodriguez. And then
Right.
Curtis Samuel had that 1 for 6. That was a great play. It looked like they were almost going to run a triple option out of the shotgun. Everyone went right, and then Samuels cut back left on the option.
Right.
Almost like a classic cutback run by a running back.
Mm-hmm.
His move, but they really faked him well there. I thought
Yes.
that should be
That
a
was actually a good
staple.
play. Yeah,
That
I'm
should,
sure it will be.
yeah. Receiving yards on the day. Curtis Samuel led the team, 5 for 54. followed by Logan Thomas, who was 4 for 43. Jahan Dotson, 5 for 40. Then you get to the first Arizona Cardinal, 3 for 33 for Rondell Moore.
Mm-hmm.
McLaurin, 2 for 31. A lot of people were upset about that. I wasn't upset about that. He's
I
still coming
wasn't
back
either.
from an injury.
Yes.
Like, we don't know if he's 100%. He was just out there. If he's just a distraction for a while, fine.
Well, you
Let
could.
him
Well,
get healthy.
I could tell watching on the field he wasn't getting into his cuts like he
Yeah.
normally would anyway. So I'm even surprised to be honest with you. He even played week 1 to be honest with you.
Mm, mm. The one that disappointed me, Cole Turner only got 2 targets and was 1 for 17.
That was
Uh,
very frustrating in that game.
yeah, yeah. I
Yes.
need more Cole Turner as a pass catcher. I need more Antonio Gibson catching the ball rather than running ball. He was 1 for 10. Um, yeah, that's what I want to see. I don't want to see as much Logan Thomas because Logan Thomas. I mean, I guess 4 for 43 isn't a terrible day for a tight end, but it felt like he had what 2 drops.
I You know what? I actually thought he had 4 to be honest with you, but I think he
Well,
only
he
was
was
credited with
there were
2.
8 attempts his way, so it could have been more. Yeah.
Yeah, it just seemed like if he wasn't catching it, he had just complete and total butterfingers. It was just it would I at one point just screamed and said, "Why is Cole Turner not out there?" And the
Yeah.
guy next to me just laughed. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Come on, this is
Oh,
just
is this the
ridiculous."
guy you were telling me about before?
Yes,
Yeah. Dave made a new friend in the stands.
his name is Warren. How you doing, Warren?
Hi, Warren. Uh, yeah, yeah. That is always nice to make friends in the stand and not get punched in the face like certain Ravens fans did.
Yes,
All
yes,
right, so
yes.
let's talk about the offense overall here. What was your immediate reaction to what you saw in person? Did you go back and rewatch it out of curiosity, or have you?
I kept meaning to, but I just never had the
Yeah,
time to go back
it's
and
tough to
rewatch
find
it. But
time
yeah,
to do that.
yes.
Yeah.
But I think I had a lot of mixed emotions with this offense because there were plays that Sam Howell
Hmm.
had that he didn't take, and I had a short conversation with someone on Twitter, and and he brought up a good point. Because like on the third play, it was 3rd down and 7 or 3rd down and 10, where
Right.
De'Ami Brown cleared out on an out and up going down the sideline. He was running right towards me.
Right.
And I'm sitting there, he's wide open. I see Sam Howell looking right at him. I mean, he was clear as day, just looking right. He saw him just breaking wide open. But then
Hmm.
he comes back underneath and he kicks it short to Jahan Dotson. And I'm sitting there with my hands thrown out. I'm going, he's right there. He's right there. Throw him the ball. It was an easy touchdown. The only way it would have not been a touchdown if you overthrow it or De'Ami Brown drops it.
Right.
But, as like someone on Twitter said, it's just, you can't fully fault him because by looks, it looked like he was trying to look the safety off, and the play was designed for Jahan Dotson coming across the middle, and that's fine. I get that, and he even said, but a 3 or 4 year vet version of Sam Howell takes that throw downfield. But right now in his second start, he's following his progressions of what the play calls for. I'm like,
Right.
I get that. That makes it a little less frustrating. I get that. That's fine. But
We never really know what the reads are supposed to be. You know,
correct. Yeah.
you say he was looking down that way, like he was looking the guys off. That could be. That could be. And Brown could have been the fifth option on that play. Like
Sure.
you're looking him off. Oh, let me come down. Nope. 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 All right, go back to him. You know.
Yeah.
Uh, I I get it, and we can micro pick things like that apart. Uh, I'd be interested to know if Bieniemy felt that way in the end. Like,
I'm
take that
I,
shot in the future. But
I'm
I mean,
sure you're absolutely right on that. I'm sure Bieniemy sat him down and said, "Listen, I know my play called for this, and you're
Mhm,
supposed to do that, but when you see this, you
right?
take that."
Yeah,
But yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right on that. I'm sure Bieniemy pointed that out to him, no doubt.
I'm sure he did. And the other thing to keep in mind, they are really trying to go just short passing game all the way through here. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I think that much has been obvious. Is I don't think they trust their line enough to give them the time to take those deep shots too often. So they're just gonna dink and dunk if they have to.
Yeah, and that's the one thing you mentioned, the line. It's like, we're facing a depleted Arizona defensive front.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, they have Frank Clark as their edge rusher, but he's not Frank Clark from KC. I mean, he's not the same player. I mean, he's still an effective pass rusher. He's still disruptive, but not the same impact player. And
Right.
there were too many times I saw this offensive line get bullied by this defensive front. It wasn't often, but considering the opponent, in my eyes, I thought it was too much. And the second level blocking just wasn't very consistent. And it was like there was nothing beyond the line of scrimmage that was available for these running backs. Now, I say that, but there were also I saw many opportunities for cutback lanes that our running
Hmm.
backs just don't have the vision to take advantage of. It's like, you hand it off to Gibson or Robinson. They're designed to go to the two gap and they're running that way, but it's clogged. But there's a cutback lane to the left, and it's like, I can't go that way. I can't go that
No,
way. I got to keep
Gibson would
going here.
rather try and run right up the guard's
Yeah,
backside and
right,
hit him and hit him and then go.
right.
I and look, these are things that are in real time happening in less than a second. Like the
Sure.
I realize the processing of that ain't easy for some of these guys.
No, I
Uh,
get that. I agree.
yeah, but yeah, the one I don't think or I don't know that we have a line that's cohesive yet.
No.
And by that I mean they might have some individual talent. You look at some of these analytics sites actually graded our line pretty well over or individually our linemen, but they're not playing as a unit very well
Right.
yet.
Well, I will say that during the course of the game, because I believe of the 6 sacks that you mentioned earlier, four of them I do believe happened in the first half.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you saw the line containing and playing much more effective as it went through. And
Mhm.
I think against Denver, we're going to really find out to see if that progression is them, becoming more cohesive, like you mentioned, or is it just because that Arizona defensive front just really isn't that good? We're
Right.
going to find out. So, but I mean, I did see some improvement going along the way. But I mean, we know a lot more than that in a few weeks when we play Buffalo and Philly.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those will be the biggest tests early on.
Right.
Um, yeah. Speaking of Arizona's defense, just in general, since we're talking about the Washington offense, uh, were they headhunting a little bit?
Oh,
Do you
they
think?
absolutely. They absolutely were. Sam Howell,
Yeah.
they had. I mean, even though they were flagged twice for unsportsmanlike conduct, there were like four other flags they could have thrown easily in that
Yeah.
direction of
Oh yeah.
Sam Howell, and one of them was a low shot coming right
Yeah.
below his knees that the whole entire stadium erupted. It's like, well, what are you doing? I mean, where are these flags at? You're not making these calls, but
Yeah.
it's
And then you had the one where the guy like leg locked his head and threw him into the ground.
yes.
I don't think that got called either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it looked like he was watching a little MMA the night before.
Yeah, yeah. Or
So,
some nice 1980s wrestling, little
right.
Bret the Hitman Hart kind of action there.
Yeah.
That's what that was.
So,
Yeah. Look, they were headhunting for Hal, but there were a couple cheap shots here and there that I noticed.
yes.
And let's be honest, the coach there in Arizona kind of had that reputation in Philly too. So not
Okay,
totally surprised.
Gannon.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, Gannon.
In
Um,
fact, there was one. I mean, it wasn't an egregious hit coming out of the sideline, but Hal was like clearly 3 yards,
mhm.
into the white paint, and the defense line came in and just shoved them, not real hard,
Yeah, yeah,
but I mean, if that was Rogers or somebody else, that flag, like four flags are being thrown all over the place.
right.
So
Uh, uh,
what?
as opposed to when It wasn't Cole Turner. Who was the other tight? Who was the tight end that ran that one? He was running like a fly route, and the linebacker just kind of stuck his elbow out into him, and it got called as offensive pass interference.
Oh, you're talking about that what they call for a pick play,
Yeah,
or
they
is
called it a
it?
pick play, but
Yeah, it's.
if you go
I,
rewatch it, it's the defensive equivalent of a flop.
well,
He jumped into the guy and hit him, and then jumped back.
well, see, the crazy part is when you watch it, and it was Bates who was thrown against. He came up.
Bates, yeah, that's who it was.
Yeah, he was running what looked like a comeback. He came out, he went out 7 yards, and then he stopped and went to come in. He actually came towards the sidelines. He was away from the defender, so it wasn't like he was coming. And that's when the defender did what he did,
Yeah.
And Bates was just trying to run the route, and then the flag comes out. I'm like, in what world is that called? Offensive pass interference? That just made no sense.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it looked when he hit him, he was not running towards the defender at all. Like
No,
that's what.
not at all. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, because I even took the video. I even slowed it down. And once I was like, was there something Bates did? It's like, no, he ran his route. It's all he did. He ran his route.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah. And look, I'm a-okay with the pick, like the actual pick plays being called, but that wasn't a pick play. I'm sorry.
no, not even close.
Some other things that stood out on offense. I mean, not a spectacular day for anybody, obviously. You look at the 2 turnovers Hal had, and look, you make those mistakes versus Arizona, we get away with it. You make those
Right.
mistakes versus most other teams in the league, because that
They're
was
backbreakers.
Oh yeah, that was a 10-point swing in the Arizona's favor right there.
Mm-hmm.
One of those, they scored a touchdown. The other was a field goal. So
Right.
you can't let that happen.
No. It's and that fumble by Hal was just. I mean, it's just he just had the ball low. I mean, he saw the rush coming, tried to peel away from it, but you gotta keep that ball up. But you know what though, Hal, from what I can remember anyway, from when his time in Carolina and North Carolina, I mean he's usually pretty good at ball security. So I don't think that's really going to be a problem with him. But like you said, if that happens against one of these really good teams, it's a backbreaker.
Yeah.
So
I did see something that I thought was funny where somebody was like, well, Hal's got to run with the ball higher up when I'm like, he's still a quarterback. He's still trying to look to throw. Like, he wasn't taking off yet at that point.
right. And
that
you know
was
what?
Yeah.
And you know what though, for what you just said right there, for him being a quarterback, he still has to look up and everything. The one thing I have to give him a ton of credit for, and the people out there just want to give up on him already, want to sit there and criticize. It's his second start. Relax, people.
Give him time.
Right. And the one thing that he kept doing, no matter how many mistakes he made, he came back. He reset himself mentally, kept his eyes downfield. His awareness in the pocket stayed strong. He kept moving, stepping up, rolling out when he had to, and everything. It wasn't like when you saw with Carson Wentz when he got that one big hit. All of a sudden, now it's like his head's on a swivel, looking all over the place, and where's the next guy coming from, and then he's taking these bad sacks. He wasn't anything like that at all. So
Right.
I mean, and that touchdown throw to
that was a
to
thing
Robinson.
of beauty.
He split 6 defenders basically to get that ball to Robinson. It was a beautifully thrown ball. So
yeah, that thing, the angle on Justice, like the default angle, there was a video that somebody posted from the end zone, like the perfect spot where they have like the tunnel that he threw that down between the defenders.
I saw that.
Yeah, that is an outstanding throw. That was Patrick Mahomes like. Let's be honest. And look, I'm not going to say Sam Howell is Patrick Mahomes. I don't think he'll ever be that kind of quarterback.
Right.
But he can be the guy who gives you 2 of those a game. Two crazy plays that you're like, oh, that was an impressive little, where Mahomes does that, every drive.
Oh yeah, that's his game, and he does it with great precision and accuracy too.
Right.
But see, that's also another thing with Sam Howell. You go back to his time in North Carolina. He made those throws. He made off-platform throws, and he did pretty well at them. That's why he was considered a top quarterback coming out for the draft for the following year until he had the final year in North
Yeah.
Carolina that he had that dropped him down
He
to the fifth
struggled.
round. But
Yeah.
so, but he's very capable of making these off-platform throws. He's very capable of making these throws in his tight windows. The only problem that he runs into is that with his inconsistency with his mechanics at times when he gets
Sure.
off platform doing it, he doesn't have a Mahomes arm to where Mahomes off platform throws it like he's standing in the pocket in perfect form. He can't. Obviously, Mahomes is just unique in that. But
Yeah. You need like a 1% arm of a 1% of the 1% arm.
yes.
The other thing, well, you know what? I don't really know. Is there anything else you want to talk about the offense? We should talk about the defense real quick because I
Yeah.
think that was the much better part of the day. Man, that defensive line, they just lived in the backfield. It felt like,
Right.
especially Allen and Payne really just dominated throughout.
There was no pocket at all for Dobbs to step up into a
No.
majority of that game. There was nothing. And I'm telling you, I'm gonna call it right now. Montez Sweat's getting the contract extension next year for this team because Montez Sweat feeds off
Mhm.
just feeds off of Payne and Allen up the middle, and he is. And from where he was when there was criticisms about him and Chase Young on
Yeah.
freelance and not sticking it, when that criticism happened and Chase Young was out for a period of time, the one thing that you saw from that point on going forward is you always noticed Montez Sweat maintaining his lane, maintaining his responsibility, and just getting better and better and better. I've always been a Montez Sweat fan, and there's no way he leaves the building.
Yeah.
So
So stats wise, Sweat 1.5 sacks, 5 total tackles. Jonathan Allen 1 sack, 3 total tackles. Um, the big leader was Cam Curl who had 10 tackles, and Deron Payne. I thought he had a great game, but he was only credited with 2 tackles, although both behind the line, which is
hmm
big. And that's the thing. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 tackles were behind the line of scrimmage.
right.
I mean, you do that to any team, it's gonna really mess up
Yeah.
anything they want to do.
And see,
Uh,
and the one thing, even though the stats don't show it, the one thing that Deron Payne added to that game,
mhm.
it was exactly what Sweat fed off of and Allen as well. It's the fact that it's who do you block? Who do you decide to you want to focus
Yeah,
on? And I believe from what I recognize, Payne got more of the attention than what Jonathan Allen did. And but the problem is Jonathan Allen is an all-pro defensive tackle. So it's
yeah,
like the next game you can see attention shifted to Allen, and then Payne's going to have 1.5 sacks and all these tackles for losses or whatever. It's just yeah, it's going to be fun watching this defensive front this year. And I think even though they gave up a couple chunk plays in this game, and even though at times it looked like they struggled against an inferior offense, I think a lot of the struggles and the chunk plays they gave up were just simply them out of position and not being where they were supposed to be, which is what you call basically a sign of rust and not being cohesive yet.
sure.
Defensively, I think this team is going to be perfectly fine because when we go back to this secondary should have had 4 interceptions in this game. Cam Curl
Yeah,
dropped one.
they were playing extremely well.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And Forbes was like running the routes for the receivers. He
Hmm.
undercut one. I mean, the ball was right there, right there in his hands. That was an easy pick. I mean, I think he makes that 9 times out of 10.
I mean, look, there's also it's not easy getting interceptions.
No, you're right.
Like
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
it's very difficult. Fuller also had a couple great plays where he was just a complete shadow on his receiver and broke up a couple. Um,
Well,
they,
I think it was, I want to say it was Arizona's third drive of the first half where
mhm.
they came down to the red zone. Actually, no, It was in the second quarter, first half. So I think it was like the fourth or fifth drive because it was coming towards us, where
Okay.
where I was sitting, and they came down where they were first and goal inside the 10.
Yeah.
And that defense kept them out of the end zone. And one of the big parts of that was Cam Curl. He came up with a great tackle on a run play, and he had a play on Zach Ertz, and Zach Ertz looked like he was going to have a catch for a touchdown.
Yeah,
But the way
that was one of his big ones right there.
yes, right there, and it was just I mean, he just stood up right there, and it was definitely a very good series for that defense, and that's where they gave up
Mhm.
a couple of chunk plays on that drive. So
Yeah. Well, look, you're not gonna shut everybody out. I mean,
no,
granted, Arizona is probably the one team that you have a great shot to shut out,
for
but
sure.
it's not easy. Uh,
Oh,
and even after
one
that first touchdown drive Arizona had, I was like, I'm not really that panicked about this still.
and
Like they
and the
put together
one
a
thing
series.
and the one thing that I'm going to add is Jabril Cox needs to come up for this game because Cody Barton is just absolutely horrific.
Mm,
I mean the guy was being blocked 3-4 yards back every time an offensive line met him. If it wasn't for the fact that John Davis had such a good game,
yeah.
our linebackers did absolutely nothing in this game, and Barton was being abused all game. I just it was actually embarrassing to watch.
Yeah, I mean, look, he was brought in to be the replacement middle linebacker for Holcomb, but
Hmm.
I mean, sure, you got to give him some time to adjust, but
Right.
uh, yeah, it was not impressive.
No.
I still don't know what they're doing at linebacker for the most part.
Yeah.
All right, we should move on though and talk about this coming game with the Broncos. Interesting game. I just watched their tape versus Las Vegas. I still don't want to say Las Vegas.
It's odd
It's
still.
Oakland to me. Um, that game and Washington's Week 1 game, I feel like are almost identical in a lot of
Hmm.
ways. These were sloppy games, very defense heavy, uh, and it's funny. I look at the Broncos and I see a lot of parallels to how they're built to how Washington's built. I've thought for a while Sam Howell, like the model quarterback he should be emulating is Russell Wilson. They have a
Hmm.
very similar build, and Howell's not the biggest guy, and he has the same kind of athleticism where he can get out of the pocket and make a throw.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, so yeah, I see the Broncos as just a variation of what Washington does in a lot of ways. Their
Right.
run defense was very good last week. I think the Broncos had only 50 yards. Let me look that up real quick. Uh, but yeah, like they're built on a good defense. They have a couple skilled receivers, and they have a so-so quarterback at this point because Russell Wilson ain't the old Russell Wilson anymore.
No. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Do they just have? I am not finding the number I was looking for.
What are you looking for?
Oh, here we go. Team stats. I just want to see what the Raiders did rushing wise. 61 yards. Sorry. 29 rushes for 61 yards. That's not a good day on the ground.
Hmm.
I mean, Vegas won, but uh, that's 2 yards a carry, Dave.
Yeah, I know.
So that's for anyone bad at math. That's 2 yards a carry. You don't want to do that in a football game.
Well,
Uh,
that's right. That's right up our alley because
hmm
we're not going to do much more than that anyway against anybody. I
Yeah,
mean, even a high school defense, our running game is not going to do that much more anyway. So, but
yeah. It's a little concerning. But yeah. So, what are your first thoughts when you look at the Broncos overall?
the Broncos, I think two big difference makers that gives the Broncos the edge is Sean Payton and Patrick Surtain, the third. Sean
Yeah.
Payton's offense. Sean Payton obviously knows how to run offense. He knows how to exploit weaknesses on opposing defenses. He's gonna run concepts in his passing game that's going to help neutralize our defensive front. Now, the one encouraging
Yeah.
side is the fact that our corners are playing very well so far, and our safeties are safeties. Our safeties are very, very good. They're a very good tandem back there. But my issue
Oh
is
yeah.
our linebackers. Our linebackers are not going to be able to cover these big receivers, these athletic receivers coming across the middle, and I think that's where Peyton is going to live all game. I think he's going to neutralize our defensive front by keeping everything short, everything within 10, 15 yards. And when you had Javonte Williams is a good pass catching back out of the backfield. If he can get him going, we have nobody to cover him. So I think
Yeah.
that's one aspect of that. And Patrick Surtain, he's a guy. If Sam Howell is going to be under duress by their defensive line, which I still foresee is going to be an issue, Patrick Surtain is always around the ball, and he is a guy you have to worry about for taking a pick back for a touchdown. And he's going to, and more than likely with the way that Terry McLaurin is playing because of his toe, I wouldn't be surprised if Surtain would be on Dotson. And if he
Yeah,
follows him around
I
the
was
field,
thinking that myself. If I were them, that would be my first move.
yeah,
If Terry starts beating you up, then you just make the switch. But
sure,
uh, you mentioned how they have a good running back in Williams. Their leading running back and probably their top offensive player last week, old Samaje Perine,
oh yeah,
who I didn't even know was in the NFL still.
yep,
But yeah, he is the number 2 back for Denver, and he had 41 rushing yards and 37 receiving yards last
yep,
week. So, like the, Wilson, look, Russell Wilson doesn't have the arm he used to, like I said before, but he's very good at the short stuff. He
right,
had 80% of his passes complete last week because almost everything is 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, 10 yards from the
right,
line of scrimmage. I don't think he really had a deep ball for the most part throughout the day. There might have been like one or two little gadgety kind of ball passes that went for good yardage, but it was all short stuff.
right,
You know, um, so it's going to be interesting to see how Washington, adjusts to that kind of quarterback play.
mm-hmm,
Uh, and we're talking about Sean Payton. Sean Payton, I don't think of him as like that kind of short yardage West Coast coach.
no, he's
I think
not,
of
he's
big
not.
plays with him. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's absolutely a big play guy, but the one thing that he will do, he will attack your weaknesses. And if he's going
yeah,
to attack you early with the short stuff, he's going to do that so he can open up everything downfield.
right.
But with them not having Jerry Judy, and Cortland Sutton's more of a good possession, technical route running. He's not a real big deep threat.
Right.
I think right now Peyton's hand is kind of forced to keep a lot of everything short right now because they don't have that one big deep threat right now because the one rookie that they have is and his name is slip. Oh, Mims, a guy Mims. I'm
Marvin Mims.
Marvin Mims. In fact, what did he even do last
He
week?
didn't do a whole lot.
He
Yeah,
had two
two
catches for
catches for
9 yards.
9,
Yeah. So I'm not
right
even
behind
sure.
little Jordan Humphrey,
Yeah.
who had 11 yards, and it's just a funny name. I can't take you
So,
seriously. I'm sorry.
but I mean, if he gets Marvin Mims going in that game, he's that deep threat that you have to be concerned with. But I'm not even sure if that's even going to be a threat right now coming into this game. So if there's one thing that's playing into the favor of Washington is the fact that I don't think they have to worry too much about anything coming up over top. And with them having Forrest back there the way that they do, even if they get Mims going, he's got the range that you want a free safety to have.
Yeah.
So I'm actually thinking that you might see this game where Cam Curl plays a little more of that Buffalo nickel that Ron Rivera talks about so much to keep himself in the intermediate zones to help offset what the linebackers can't cover. So, and then use him on pass rushing opportunities and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, look, I think that, yeah, you got to be ready for Wilson's going to be targeting his tight ends and his running backs a lot in this game.
yes.
Because that'll be the first soft zone parts of the defense that they'll want to try out as the linebackers, like you're saying.
Right.
Um, And last week, so I'm not necessarily worried about him contributing. But we need somebody else from that linebacking core. Hudson, I don't know who. Somebody has to come in and actually step up. We need to find that third linebacker, who maybe even second linebacker, because the new guy has struggled at middle linebacker.
I mean, that's being nice right there, struggling.
Yes.
For what I saw in that field, man, he was being
Lost.
He could have brought up assault charges. That's how bad he was being pushed around that field that game.
Hmm.
And you're talking about Arizona here. I was very frustrated by that.
Yeah.
So, but that's why you know what? I'm sorry, but just make the call for Jabril Cox. Bring him up. See what he can do. He can't be any worse than that. You know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, look, I would have made a couple moves that to still shore up some of these weaknesses if I were Washington, but they don't. They're not very proactive about this stuff.
no.
Yeah, you look at that defense for Denver too. They had a good game overall. Like they really kind of shut down. Like I said before, they shut down the Las Vegas running game. Garoppolo had an okay day, nothing special.
Right.
He had that ugly pick at one point. Overall though, Garoppolo had 2 touchdowns and a pick. If Sam Howell can somehow maintain a 2 touchdown type thing, like he did last week, it keeps you in this game because this is not going to be a shootout.
No, it's not.
So, yeah.
Yeah, this line just gives him a little bit of time so he's not rushing these throws. I mean, you're right. I mean, you have a chance of Hal keeping this team in this game. I mean, because even though they have Patrick Surtain as secondary and he's a threat every time, their secondary also isn't going to be the best secondary they're going to see all year either. So I mean, there's areas of the zone that you can attack against this Broncos secondary, but you have to contain their rush, and they have a solid pass rush. They do have a pretty good pass rush.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think it's more of a run stopping defensive line on that side, but they're efficient. They could get to the quarterback. They didn't last week, but that doesn't mean they won't. Um, they're. It felt like Las Vegas actually has a pretty good O line watching that game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is gonna be a tough one. I'm gonna say I don't know. Do you want to do predictions? There's some
Sure.
other stuff we wanted to talk about that we should talk about.
Right.
So I'm gonna say this stays a low scoring. I'm sticking with Washington winning, but I'm going like 21-20.
I'm actually, to me, I'm still sticking with my preseason prediction and all this, and this will be their first of 3 games that they're going to lose in a row, and it's going to be a 2018 Denver. Is what I see.
Okay, 20. I mean, but tight.
Yeah, very tight. I think it'll come right down to the fourth quarter. I mean, it could very well be Denver kicking a game-winning field goal type of ending. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, that would nothing would shock me with it this week.
Right.
Well, no, I shouldn't say that. If it's like 42-45, that'll shock me.
I think at that point, if that happened, we have to go back in the Revelations to see if this is part of one of those end time events, because I'm thinking it probably is
a Nostradamus situation. Yeah.
Yeah, Nostradamus situation. Yeah, I think we had to start being prepared.
Yeah. All right, so I think we got to talk about the biggest story in football, and it's not the fight that happened at the stadium for Washington, although that Raven guy just got his face punched in, and the crazy thing is he's the one being brought up on trespassing charges.
Yes, I was going to say that because it looked like the Washington fan was escorted back to his seat while the Raven fan was escorted out of the stadium.
Yeah,
I mean, it was
from what I read and heard. This is a guy who's been kicked out of the stadium before for fighting.
Mm-hmm.
He's technically not supposed to be able to get back in, but I'm assuming his girlfriend bought the tickets, so they didn't know he was coming in.
Right.
And Ravens fans also have a history of just going to Washington's games and trying to start fights.
Right.
There was a guy back in when I was going to arena football games all the time. There was one dude who I saw at every Washington Like he was just that guy. He kind of looks like you, but he was like 6'6".
6'6" and actually built like something.
Yeah. Oh no, just skinny. Not
Skinny.
not well. He lost most of the fights I saw. Um, yeah, but all right. So the big story, of course, is the Aaron Rodgers thing.
Right.
Uh, 4 plays and he's done. It's an Achilles injury. It's a ruptured Achilles. They are saying right now,
Right.
but he is done for the year. I'm gonna ask you off the bat, done for good, or do you think he comes back?
Well, if it's anything from what he tweeted, I think he comes back because he says in his tweet, paraphrasing, he's gonna rise again and be stronger than ever. So I think he'll be back.
Yeah, we also heard that from the South after the Civil War, and it didn't happen. So, uh,
uh,
you know, like you can say you're gonna rise again, but that 41-year-old body ain't gonna necessarily comply all the time.
that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, and the crazy part is that when he went down, they showed the replay. It didn't seem like anything at all. I mean, yeah, his foot looked like it kind of got his toe got caught in the turf a bit.
Right.
Kind of twisted a little awkwardly, but it didn't seem like anything major. So it was like, so when he stood up and then he went to sit back down, I'm thinking, what's the matter with you? I
Yeah.
mean, you barely did anything. Next thing you know, you start hearing later, oh, it looks like it was a pretty serious ankle injury, and it became a potential Achilles injury. I was like, I didn't even see that. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah. It's not like when we saw RG3 get hurt and you saw his
right,
leg bend that weird way. And unfortunately, we're no stranger to crazy leg injuries in DC.
yes,
So, you
yeah.
know,
When his leg basically bent on the right angle, you knew there was an issue.
right. Same with what happened to Joe Theismann, to Alex
Alex
Smith.
Smith. Yep.
Uh, so the guy who I comp this whole situation to, Ryan Fitzpatrick, of course. Not
Hmm.
saying Ryan Fitzpatrick and Aaron Rodgers are the same caliber player, but
No, of course not.
just
Yeah.
you spent all this time of your off season planning for this being your starting quarterback, this seasoned veteran, and he doesn't even make it one game, and he's done.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely wild to me, and
Right.
I'd like to say I feel bad for the Jets, but I don't. Like this is the risk you make when you grab one of these veteran, even though Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Age is still age, man. Like
Hmm.
the dude's taking a lot of mileage in Green Bay.
And
Uh, yeah,
and is this not the most Jets thing to have happen?
absolutely is. That team is
It's
absolutely cursed.
yeah. And
So,
and but I will say their defense though, man, is just it's just ridiculous. And I
mhm.
didn't realize how bad Josh Allen has played his career against his Jets defense. When he picked up his when they were talking about his numbers, I think if I saw it correctly, he hasn't had a quarterback rating of over 80 except for once against this defense. That just blows my mind.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, look, Josh Allen struggles a lot at times.
Hmm.
He has more highlights. I get it, but there's a reason that Steve and I have always kind of both been critical of his accuracy issues and stuff like that.
Well, yeah,
Um,
or
you
lack
know,
thereof, really. Yeah, I get you.
yes, lack thereof being the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Allen had a bad day after
Hmm.
that all happened. Zach Wilson didn't really have a good day either.
No,
Uh,
but he
I,
was he was he was efficient enough, especially in that touchdown drive to
yeah,
Quentin Wilson in the end zone, which was an unbelievable catch that
yeah,
he had right there. But it's it's going to be an interesting season for the Jets because now they're right back to where they were last year. A really good defense,
hmm
a great running game, but a quarterback that just was not able to get this team to that next level. Now, is this all season under Aaron Rodgers? Is that change anything with Zach Wilson? Maybe, maybe not. But it's like, but if it hasn't changed, it's gonna
yeah.
this year's gonna be deja vu for them all over again. It's just
Well, the fact that the Jets apparently were already having internal discussions about making trades for Jacoby Brissett
Yeah.
from Washington. First off, to any fan who said no, I wouldn't make the trade. Yeah, one, never turn down a trade offer until you know what the trade offer is. Like, come on.
Right.
If
Right.
they're willing to do something stupid, let them. You know, like I would take
Uh,
if they offered a anything over a fourth, I would take it in a heartbeat.
oh, I
You know,
mean, if they sat there and they came up and said, okay, listen, we'd like to give you, you know, let's say, like a 6th round pick and a conditional 4th round pick that would move to a 3rd round pick. I'm just like, well, you had me at 6th.
right,
Okay, let's do this.
right.
I mean, but
He,
yeah,
he,
you don't sit there and just start rejecting an idea of a trade for your
right,
backup quarterback who's been what, a journeyman quarterback his whole career.
right. And yeah, okay, I get it. What if Sam Howell gets hurt? Or if that happens, guess what? We're going for that number one pick. That's
Right.
what's going on. We're playing for draft position at that point.
Yes.
Because this team isn't at contender level anyway. You need to stockpile.
Right.
Like
Oh, dude, absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, just like speaking of the trades, watching our running game, I'm thinking, you know what? Take Chase Young, a 5th round pick, and send it off to, and then maybe another play, Antonio Gibson, and ship him off to Indianapolis and get Jonathan Taylor out here. I mean, why
I
not?
don't I don't see
I
why not. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
if they'd be willing to trade Chase Young for Taylor, I might make that because I have zero faith Chase Young actually wants to
right.
play at this point in Washington. Not just because whatever. I think it's like he probably feels like this is cursed for him or something. Even
Yeah.
you know, it'd be best for him to just get a change of scenery. Um, yeah, like I would be open to always be open to trades. Always.
Right. Well, you have to be. That's the only way you improve your team anyway.
Yeah, man.
I mean,
I don't know what else. I don't know what else the Jets can do, man. They've tried everything at quarterback, and it just keeps blowing up in their face in spectacular fashion.
yeah,
Like,
I mean, when they had Chad Pennington, I mean, he was like the last one or last quarterback I can even remember that was actually looked like they found something, looked like they had something in him, and then all of a sudden
yeah,
he just ripped apart his shoulder, on a crazy tackle that I see happen all the
yeah,
time. But he came down just a certain way, just completely ripped apart his shoulder. He was never the same again, and it was like
yep,
I can't even think of another quarterback that they had that even had that kind of excitement for their fan base, because everything else they've ever gotten, they just fall apart.
I mean, Mark Sanchez had what, two back-to-back playoff runs as a very average quarterback, but they thought they might have had something there with him, I think, for a little while.
Well, yeah,
Regardless.
because they had Curtis Martin there at the time, and he was still running for
Hmm.
1,000 yards. Bill
Yep.
Parcells had that defense humming. It was like that team was complete.
That was Ryan, not Parcells.
Oh, you're right. It was Ryan. My bad. My bad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I mean, they had he had that defense humming, and they were
Hmm.
looking good. They were playing very well. It was just, hey, Sanchez, let's just not run into an offensive lineman and fumble the ball. That's all we
Yeah.
need you not to do. Oh, oops, sorry, didn't mean to
Yeah.
do that. Butt fumble. But yeah,
Yeah. It was a little rough for them. Chad Pennington, by the way, 47 years old. That makes me feel old. That he's Chad Pennington's gotten up there at this point.
yeah, because they took Chad Pennington. I think in that same draft is when they took Kyle Brady, the tight end from Penn State.
Oh, did
So I
they?
thought, yeah, I thought he was going to be a stud, but he
Mm,
wound up just flaming out real quick.
yeah.
But yeah, that was a long time ago.
2000. It was 23 years ago.
Yeah,
Wow. Time flies sometimes.
yeah, yeah. I actually had hair back then, so
uh, I was junior in college that year. That's oh well, or
it
no,
was
junior in
Temple,
high
right?
school. That would
Oh,
have been
high
high
school.
school.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah, I would take almost any offer for Jacoby Brissett because to
Oh
me
yeah.
draft picks are worth everything. The other little story we wanted to mention: Jared Patterson finally found a home. He's now with the Chargers in L.A. So good for him.
Yep. Yeah.
Uh,
Love to see it.
yeah, Patterson, great little guy.
Hmm.
And I mean that literally, just because he's like 5'6".
He's my
Uh,
height.
yeah, he's a
Yeah.
tiny. I like to call him the pinball because he always, was bouncing off guys to get that yardage. Um, yeah, but good luck to him. I hope he can make their squad, maybe get some playing time.
Well, right now
Uh,
it looks like Eckler's banged up pretty good with an ankle out there, but I
yeah.
haven't heard much updates on that. But they don't really have much after Joshua Kelly out there. I mean, they had this one young kid out there for a running back. I can't remember his name, but I mean, other than that, they're definitely lacking for running back. So yeah, I mean, you could actually see some playing time for them this year. So
Um, the the other thing that I just remembered came out of the whole Aaron Rodgers. Two little stories that came out of the Aaron Rodgers situation. One, the NFLPA saying we need to have grass on all these fields. I agree. You should. I
right,
realize that's tough for some teams because they've built too many indoor stadiums, but figure it out. You're a
right.
multi-billion-dollar industry. Get some freaking grow lights. I don't know. Uh, if 16-year-old kids can figure out how to grow weed in a basement, you can figure out how to grow grass in a stadium.
Yeah, I think so.
So
Yes, I
it
agree.
can't be that hard. The other funny thing, at least, did I don't know if you saw this. Apparently, because RG3 said something about how he's a great quarterback and could try to make a comeback or something like that. He got in a
Yeah.
Twitter fight with Grant Paulson of 106.7.
Oh, that part I didn't see. No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, because Grant Paulson retweeted tweeted the video where somebody put up of Griffin saying that, and you saw it, I'm sure, with the always
Yeah, yeah. I saw that interview. Yeah.
Paulson as beef with him, which I thought was just such a weirdo.
Yeah.
I will never get tired of how weird he.
Well, I mean, if you notice
So
in there, he kind of just like hinted towards, even though he said, well, no one's going to he's going to have this team in a better position to win as Zach Wilson, not me
right,
or Colin Kaepernick, all that stuff. But he just kind of made that insinuation like, but if you call me, I'll be
yeah,
ready to
yeah,
go. I'm like,
yeah,
there it is. There it is.
right. I mean,
So,
look, there were. It's like no one's better than Zach Wilson, but here's 20, 30 seconds of
yeah.
me, because that's who
Yeah.
he is.
Yeah, that's who he is, and I kind of wish he would just dump that persona finally because when he talks about football and he announces a game and he's on those college game days like he was and everything, he's fantastic to listen to. He really
Right.
is. I mean, he's a good listener. He's very well spoken. I mean, obviously he's an intelligent dude, but it's like enough with talking about yourself and sliding in these comments. Just
Yeah. Well, it's narcissism. It's classic narcissism.
yeah. That's why him and Dan Snyder got along so well.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Well, and they had the same taste in women, I bet. You know.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah. As in breathing. You know. All right. Anything
uh,
else we want to talk about that's going on in the world of the NFL? I know. Uh, Usually we save those topics for when Steve's here, but Steve's not here, and we're still doing some big NFL topics.
yeah, sure. I'm sure he would have loved to talk about the Aaron Rodgers thing too.
Yeah.
So, but Steve, you should have found a way to be here. Sorry.
Yeah. This is what happens when you get lazy, Steve. Before you know it, I'm reading all the stats, and
Uh-huh.
yep, it's a shame. All right, guys. That wraps up this week's episode. So we'll see you all next week after Washington hopefully beats Denver. I
Hey,
got to figure out what I'm making for that game. That's Denver's a tough one to like kind of do a theme. It's just beef or lamb, I guess.
I'm trying to think of what they have out there. That's
See,
I
this is
can't even see.
Steve lived out there. I could have asked him at one
Right.
point. Although asking Steve for food advice is like asking a brick wall for food advice.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Steve's not a food person. So
no.
yeah, they have this place called McDonald's. That's what they eat.
Yeah, the Mile High Donald's. That's what they call it out there. They don't know what name. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve.
Yeah.
So
All right, guys. We will talk to you all next week. Take care.
take it easy.